Something has happened that has shown that African leaders are in no mood to change the fate of the continent. They are not willing to demand respect and project their authority. Rather, they are more willing to please and appease their former colonial masters, standing up for them, lining themselves up, and getting loaded in buses if need be. Well, that's not an exaggeration, but a reality. The recent Italy-Africa Summit 2024, held in Rome, showed how low the African leaders are willing to stoop only to win favor and shake hands with the Western leaders. But out of them, Kenyan President William Ruto has made himself a laughingstock. He flew from Kenya all the way to Rome, like other leaders from 45 African countries, to attend the Italy-Africa Summit 2024. Now he is being grilled and criticized for what he said earlier and took a U-turn. So how badly have African leaders embarrassed not only themselves, but the entire African continent and its population? How were they mistreated, lined up, and loaded in buses? Again? Let's find out. In May 2023, Kenyan President William Ruto surprised everyone by taking a stand against the Western treatment of African leaders. He gave a speech during the Pan-African Parliament Summit. Ruto received a standing ovation after speaking out against the mistreatment of African heads of state during their visits to European nations. He said African leaders often lacked a platform to fully express their concerns and were only given a brief window to contribute. He said we aim to be effective, not just snap photos, dine, and then head home. He said that eating in Western countries is not the purpose because Africans have food in their own countries. He really spoke his mind and did not weigh them to ensure they were not against the West. Rather, he decided to be candid. He asked what kind of results the West could expect with 50 heads of state, each with limited speaking time. He pointed toward the Western blackmailing, saying that the most unfortunate thing is that some of those inviting us to these meetings threaten consequences if we failed to attend. He said that African leaders have now decided it is not wise for all 54 of them to stand before a single foreign president. Instead of 54 African leaders traveling to that country, the president of that country should come to Africa. It's because that country wants to engage with Africa, not the other way around. Ruto then said that sometimes African leaders were mistreated, loaded into buses like school children, and that's not acceptable. This statement referred to an incident on September 20th, 2022, when President Ruto, alongside Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu and other African leaders, were transported by bus to attend Queen Elizabeth II's state funeral in the United Kingdom. Instead of providing individual transportation, British authorities cited logistical issues and filled all African leaders into a bus. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden was allowed to travel in a personal convoy in his safest, bulletproof, and luxurious presidential car called the Beast. Ruto just won hearts. He said that African leaders, chosen by their people, merit the same level of respect as leaders from other parts of the world. He also pointed toward the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit in Washington, D.C., where 50 African leaders were present but were unable to hold individual meetings with President Biden. He voiced criticism of such arrangements, expressing dissatisfaction with African presidents traveling globally to meet with the leader of one country but not getting time to meet individually. It's exactly the same as how school kids are treated. They are taken to the presidential house and they get excited, thinking they will be taken in luxurious cars, respected, and meet individually with the president. But when they see a school bus waiting for them, they are loaded into it, taken to the president, and lined up. The president does not even see them but gets a picture taken for the record. He then presented a solution. He said that as a part of the African Union, it has been decided that if there is a discussion between Africa and any other nation, we will delegate the chair and the bureau. In other words, a few representatives from the African Union would participate. But guess what? African leaders did attend the recent Italy-Africa Summit, and William Ruto was also present. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video, and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Africa's geopolitics, economy, and changing landscape. Let's continue now. Not only him, but African leaders from 45 states were present there. It was in deep contrast to what Ruto said and what was decided. Instead of sending African Union representatives, the African leaders just could not fathom the happiness and decided to participate personally. Instead of manifesting their collective decision, the feeling of personal attraction to the West won. Even if every African leader is accountable for this, Ruto is the center of attention. He is being grilled. Meanwhile, he is trying to defend his actions. While being present at the summit, he was feeling embarrassed and knew he would have to explain himself for attending the summit. Therefore, in a single statement, Ruto defended and yet tried to please Italy's prime minister. He said that he wanted to express his gratitude to President Sergio Mattarella, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and the Italian government for hosting this summit. He said that although he had previously expressed reservations about invitations extended by individual countries to all 54 African nations, this particular conference has been distinct and encouraging due to the pragmatic approach adopted by Madam Prime Minister. But only he knows what pragmatic Italy's Prime Minister did, because he was again lined up and made to stand collectively with other African leaders for a photo shoot. However, they were blessed this time because individual photos of the African leaders with Italy's Prime Minister were taken. Now, we know that when it comes to African leaders like Kenyan President William Ruto, they do not hesitate to contradict themselves to achieve their goals. However, other African leaders had not made explicit remarks about how they are treated. It was Ruto who first talked about it and pocketed the credit for criticizing the West. And now, he has to answer. Disillusioned Kenyans have criticized Ruto for his inconsistency despite staunchly supporting him in 2022. Although Ruto may excel at creating a favorable impression, his actions do not consistently align with his words in terms of concrete accomplishments. The same is the case with every African leader who participated in the summit. Instead of being absent from these summits, African leaders compromised on their integrity, but did so by making Africa embarrassed. It's rightly said that everyone has plans for Africa except Africa itself. The pattern where foreign governments, international organizations, and multinational corporations execute to benefit from Africa's resources still exists. These external actors pursue their own agendas when engaging with Africa, which does not always align with the long-term visions of African nations or their citizens. On the other hand, the African nations and their leaders have not consistently a coordinated or effective approach for shaping their own destiny or maximizing their potential. African leaders are more divided than united and focus more on their personal gains than the collective interest of Africa. If this continues, African leaders will always be a source of embarrassment for Africa, and other countries will continue to exploit it. What will happen at the upcoming summits, like the Turkey-Africa Summit, India-Africa Summit, Russia-Africa Summit, China-Africa Summit, France-Africa Summit, Saudi-Africa Summit, and US-Africa Summit is to be seen. Chances are that the African leaders will prioritize winning favor from the host of these summits by attending them instead of asking them to come to Africa and propose their suggestions. What do you think? Should African leaders decline to go to other countries and sit before their leaders like servants? Or should they consider it a compromise and participate to avoid getting left out? In the comment section right below, let us know your thoughts on William Ruto's defense of his U-turn from his earlier statement. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, economy, and increasing power. Thanks for watching. And until the next video, stay tuned.
Tell us what you think in the comment section. Like and share the video, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our African videos. It's the best way to support us.